everyone, GScotty here. In this series, I try to get an hour of gameplay for every dollar spent on a certain game. So, with that in mind, is Death's Door worth $1 an hour? Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and let's check it out. La Caravera Katrina, Shinigami, Thanatos. Everywhere you look, all sorts of cultures have their own variations of someone or something who comes to Earth to escort the souls of those who have died to an afterlife, or the next phase of existence. Most people would refer to these figures as reapers, but, instead of wheat and barley, they harvest souls. Now, most of these reapers are terrifying figures that look like they would go right into the cover of a Disturbed album. Ooh, wah, ah, 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 and all that. But wouldn't it be something, just hear me out with this one, wouldn't it be something if they were cute little critters? Something Bob Ross would have showed off in his art studio. Could such a thing exist? Something synonymous with death and the reaping of souls, but they're also just stupid cute animals that also look really awesome? I mean, yeah, it's this guy right here. Look at him. He's perfect. I've had my eye on Death's Door for a while, solely based on the lovely color palette and artistic design alone. So when I picked it up for $20 US, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But the concept of being a little soul-reaping crow with a sick glowing sword, as well as being published by Devolver Digital, was enough to get my foot in the door, Anyway, let's see what our life is really like for our little crow friend. Let's take a closer look at Death's Door. Death's Door is an action-adventure RPG developed by Acid Nerve and released on July 20th, 2021. You're a small crow working as a reaper for the Reaping Commission headquarters, and you are tasked with finding unwilling souls and figuring out mysteries throughout the land. The game is an isometric wonderland that reminds me a lot of Tunic, and sports easy controls for combat and exploration that is reminiscent of old-school Legend of Zelda games. You begin the game with only a sword, a very awesome sword, though, I must say. But as you go on, you'll pick up new weapons and various spells that will help you navigate the terrain. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely thought this game was a Metroidvania with how smooth the exploration and level design was when you pick up new weapons and go back and explore different locations. I understand that it isn't one, but gosh, it's a genuinely lovely designed game. The Grove of Spirits, the Stranded Sailor, even the hub world at Reaping Commission headquarters, every location and every level has something incredible to explore, and is a treasure to roam around in. And it doesn't just stop at the level design. Every character that you come across is such a treat. From the bosses with surprisingly deep and awesome personalities, to the lovable side characters like Pothead and Steadhone, even to your underpaid, overworked crow workers. Okay, I'll stop. I was taken aback by how charmed I was by every character in the game. They all had surprisingly rich character, and it never failed to make me smile every time I would see one. Heck, not spoiling anything, but something happened in the game to one of the characters early on, and I found myself audibly gasping and saying, "No!" out loud. I could go on with examples of how I laughed out loud, and was overall very attached to basically every character. But dadgummit all, Jefferson is my ride or die. That totally a human man legend is a lad and a half, I'm telling you. Actually, quite literally. Now, if I could talk about the combat for just a moment. I think it's great. Okay, moment over. In all seriousness, the controls are incredibly easy to grasp, with one button for melee damage, an easy combo for spells, and your D-pad to swap between said spells. I'm glad the game has very basic controls that don't get in the way of the combat. Which, the combat is surprisingly difficult at times. From enemy gauntlets to powerful bosses, this game doesn't let up on the gas. I genuinely felt like I was playing a Souls-like at times. In my opinion, though, the game is all the better for it. There's nothing better than struggling on a certain fight, only to eventually get a read on the enemy's attack pattern and come out the other end victorious. Now, with all that being said, I do think it should be noted that this game isn't flawless. There were times I'd be moving down a platform only to drift off the edge without me doing anything and take damage. That was a bit frustrating. Another thing I thought was a bit frustrating was how grindy it was to level up. Most of the enemies that I came across dropped single digits of soul energy to help me level up, and the first level ups you can get cost 400 souls. 400! And it keeps increasing the cost of every stat level up. By the end of the game, my stats were mediocre, I guess? Even though I felt like I had done quite a bit of exploring to find larger deposits of soul energy. I'm sure this won't be a problem for everyone, and I'm actually kinda glad that I was a bit weaker for the final fight, but that's just something I thought I would mention. Now comes a big kicker, and I'd like to use this time to emphasize the purpose of these reviews that I make. I judge a game to see if I can get an hour's worth of entertainment for every dollar spent on the game that I'm reviewing. I think that a lot of games that aren't technically worth $1 an hour are still great experiences. That being said, this game is surprisingly short. What content it does have is very quality, but I don't really know how to explain it. I just felt like there was something missing. Now, I will take into account that I have not collected every trinket, or shiny thing, as they call it, or artifact in the game. I'm not really one who cares about collecting everything in my first playthrough of a game, so I can acknowledge that it would add some time on the total playtime, and I will consider that while making my final verdict. At the end of the day, I don't think not having every collectible is the reason I feel like something was missing from the game. I just feel like there was something else. Maybe the dungeon's progression system just felt a little too similar to one another. Maybe I wanted at least one more area to explore. Regardless, Death's Door is still a wonderful experience that had an insane chokehold on me. The aesthetic, the gameplay, and especially the locations and characters, the game just radiated with me a lot more powerfully than I had anticipated. We begin our journey as a little crow who works as a reaper for the Reaping Commission headquarters, a dismal, seemingly run-down version of the afterlife where crows live forever, in exchange for their services to the current Lord of Doors. The reaper is tasked to collect the soul of a beast who is clutching onto life, even though its death day is well past expired. When they defeat the beast, its soul is nabbed by an old gray crow. He tells the reaper of a conspiracy regarding the disappearances of other crow reapers, and how he needs the reaper's help in opening Death's Door by collecting the souls of 3 giants who refuse to die: the Witch of the Urns, the King of the Swamp, and Betty. Yep, just Betty. Bless her soul, that Betty. After collecting all the giant souls, Death's Door is open, and we meet Death itself, who reveals that they were trapped here by the current Door Lord. See, the Reaping Commission was created when Death made a deal with the first of the Door Lords that they would have longer lives in exchange for their services in processing souls. Well, the current Door Lord didn't want to eventually die at all, so they trapped Death. We have to defeat the Door Lord, and when we eventually do, the bureaucracy is cancelled, and the rest of the crows go out into the world, free to live their own lives. The story is incredibly simple, but I found it to be a rather profound message on life, death, and what it means to truly live. I thought the story was very nice. It wasn't hard to understand, but at the same time it had a certain complexity that was incredibly refreshing. I've never felt talked down to or anything like that. I won't say that the narrative is the game's biggest selling point, that of course would be Jefferson, but it was still a fun time. Also, as I was fact-checking myself while I was writing this script, I found out that there was a true ending that occurs after the credits. You have to solve a few puzzles, and you discover something very interesting, actually. I don't want to talk about it in too much detail. One, because I haven't been able to uncover it for myself completely. I only know of what happens. And two, it adds a lot to the lore that I find would be best left discovered and processed for yourself. Normally, I don't like feeling like I have to gather things to get the correct ending, but I'm very excited to gather things to get the correct ending. Plus, that just means more Death's Door. Always a W. I will say that I'm not completely sold on the ending from what I've learned and heard about it, but I am looking forward to experiencing it to its fullness myself. Death's Door oozes with personality. I can't believe that I fell so hard for all these characters that I had barely just met. If you like colorful, unique characters, fun dialogue, and moments of genuine heartache and character development, I cannot recommend this game enough. Do it for Jefferson, if nothing else! The game doesn't overstay its welcome. In fact, I kinda wish it would have stayed a little bit longer during the main game. However, it doesn't feel like a chore to revisit the game. I would love to hop back in and play this wonderful title again and again. I have no idea if my personal biases make this game score higher for me. I've always loved creative takes on familiar stories and situations, like this game's take on Reapers and the afterlife. But even if you don't play games for those reasons, I still think you'll love the simple combat, the colorful settings, and explorable dungeons. While I do think that the true ending is a bit bit underwhelming. The story is so enjoyable, I can hardly hold that against it. I believe that this title is most certainly one that every gamer should experience. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be hooked. This game is an absolute treasure. Or shiny thing. It's an absolute shiny thing. So, what's the final verdict? Is Death's Door worth $1 an hour? Yes, it's worth the price. A massive thank you to all of you who are members of the channel, especially the biggest patrons of the month, Telemachus826 and my pal Johnny Appleseed. If you want to support the channel and gain access to cool perks like exclusive videos, stream VODs, and more, click the join button to learn how. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Bye-bye.